Welcome back to Three-Peat After Me. We begin season number 2 after a little break here in the offseason. We'll talk to a manager from an opposing team for the first time. It's the manager of the Kannapolis Cannonballers who knocked off the Charleston RiverDogs in the playoffs in an epic series in September that kind of ended the RiverDogs championship run, at least for now. That's right. We'll talk to manager Pat Leyland, the son of Hall of Fame Detroit Tigers manager Jim Leyland, on our first episode here in season 2. Well, Pat, we haven't seen you in a couple of months when you were last here for Game 1 of the South Division Championship Series. But how's your offseason been so far?
Yeah, it's been great so far. I got married right after the season in October, so there was no time for resting after the season. That's for sure. We were getting ready for a wedding and got home and we did that, and just got back from our honeymoon a few days ago. So things are good, man.
Well, congratulations on that. I got married while working in baseball as well. You got to kind of plan everything after September and before February, I would imagine.
You got a short window, man. You got a short window, so it honestly makes things a little easier, really, because you can narrow it down pretty quick, you know.
That is true. It takes some of the decision making away. I think we're going to start with obviously, one of the big reasons we wanted to have you on was the way last season ended and how fantastic that series was. But I think it all kind of goes back to, you started your second year as the manager in Kannapolis here for opening day. And what was that like for you? I think opening day is always special. After you're done at spring training, you're playing in front of a small group of people. You finally get your team in the uniforms and you play somebody else wearing a minor league uniform. But what was opening day in Charleston like for you guys?
No doubt, man. Well, it's always exciting, it really is. You get through that grind of spring training and you just want to play them for real, and you get your team finally and you've had your workout days and now it's time to go for real. And, aside from maybe starting at home in Kannapolis, I can't think of a better place to start than Charleston. I mean, what a great atmosphere. And that was a special opening weekend. We got to see the ring ceremony, which I thought was kind of neat for us, that was a nice opportunity to kind of show the guys like, hey, we are playing for something at the end of the year, hopefully. And it was special, man. And Charleston's a really cool town, and really enjoy being there. And thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate you're actually the first manager for an opposing team to come on. So I know you got along with Smed pretty well, so I think we'll be okay from that end. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Let's talk about your first half. You guys clinched the playoff berth in the first half, which is always nice in terms of balancing player development and then trying to win a championship at the end. But you guys had a very experienced team, a very talented team in the first half especially. One guy that I always enjoyed watching that you don't see a ton of his type of player anymore was Riku Nishida. I think you knew who I was going to say there. But can you kind of explain what getting him into the organization was like for you guys, a guy that put the bat on the ball, could play infield or outfield, and pretty much answered the call whenever you needed him?
Yeah, I mean, he made us go. Right from the start, he just put up such quality at bats. Defensively, he was solid anywhere you put him. He's just a really smart, good, winning baseball player. And certainly, he meant the world to us. And we definitely wouldn't have been in the position in the first half, without him, that's for sure. And yeah, we got off to a good start. We had some question marks coming out of spring training, but I felt like our pitching was pretty good. And some of these guys on the offensive side, performed at a high level, and we weren't really sure. And, we got hot and kind of had that stretch there where we went 20-4, and we were able to kind of, and we needed to, because at that point, Columbia was basically just as hot as we were. So that was a crucial stretch for us, and we were able to get it done in the first half, which, like you said, is always nice, because then you can approach the second half with, guys are going to move. You're going to have, to kind of do things on the fly, and to not have that pressure of necessarily, man, like we got to do them both, right away, because, we're fighting it out with somebody or somebody else is hot. And so, yeah, it's always nice to win the first half.
Clinching the first half, what was that night like? Because it is kind of you're only halfway through the season, and the way they do it now, you have another game the next day in the same spot generally that starts the second half. And I know you didn't clinch on the final day, but what was it like to celebrate that and know that, hey, come September, we're going to have important games?
It was unique because we actually found out on the bus. So we were coming back. We were coming back from Delmarva, and our number at that point was 2, and we had won a Sunday getaway day in Delmarva. We played early, and Columbia was playing in Myrtle Beach late. So, of course, we were on the bus. We're like, hey, we did our part. We'll see. If it's a win this next coming series, whatever, we'll get it done. But yeah, we were definitely watching the game, and sure enough, Myrtle Beach walked off Columbia in 11 innings with like 2 outs, 2 strikes, down a run or something. It was crazy. So yeah, we actually found out on the bus on the way home, and it made for a fun bus trip. That's for sure.
What a big part of single A baseball, we all know this, is the draft happens, and then come sometime in July, August, maybe even early September for some guys, you all of a sudden get this influx of new talent. I know there were some guys that ended up playing a huge role, and again, we'll get into details on the series between the RiverDogs and the Cannonballers, but how close do you watch the draft, obviously knowing that you have games in and around that day? And around the All-Star break, and then do you start to think, oh, we might get this guy, and then how do you start to filter those guys in?
To be 100% honest, I don't think about the draft at all. That's scouting, that's front office. My whole thing is like, hey, we get them when we get them, and we'll be happy about it, and we'll go to work. So honestly, I don't really think about the draft at all. I get the message that says, hey, you're getting so and so, and a little bit of information on them, and let's go.
So the second half is starting to play out. You're waiting to find out who you guys are going to face, and it was kind of Charleston and Columbia again for a good chunk of that second half, and then the RiverDogs started to pull away toward the final week or two of the second half. How close were you watching that race to kind of see, hey, who are we going to have to get ready for on that Tuesday after the regular season?
I was watching it. I was definitely watching it. It got to a point where it looked like you guys were going to definitely win it. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping that last week would have been a little bit tougher. I was hoping it would kind of get pushed towards the end of the week, maybe burn a few bullets. But, of course that didn't happen, and, it's the way it goes.
I think it was a unique thing. And I've always said that in minor league baseball, as much as people want there to be rivalries, it's really hard at this level to have a rivalry of any kind because it's a different group of players, really not even from year to year, but from month to month, and they don't really learn not to like each other. But I felt like in the Carolina League, I think everybody else was rooting for Kannapolis to win that series for obvious reasons. But what was it like when you knew that it was going to be Charleston and Kannapolis, knowing that you had as good a shot as anybody to kind of end that run of 3 straight championships?
Well, I wasn't surprised that it was Charleston. I mean, we kind of felt like it was going to end up there, all year, especially once the second half started, and we kind of saw what they were doing, and we're like, I actually told my bench coach the last series we were in Charleston towards the end of the regular season. It might have been the beginning of August. I can't really remember what it was. But I looked at him. I said, we're going to be back here on September 10th, right? And he looked at me and kind of laughed and smiled. I said that, it's going to happen. And we were excited about it though, because like you said, I mean, we played so many good games against each other all year.
Yep.
And they were always competitive. I mean, we beat up on them a little bit early. They got, the first series, they take 2 out of 3 to open the year. And then we got them pretty good in Kannapolis not all that long after that. And then, they kind of got us in the second half a little bit. But all the games were good. Like you could just feel like, all right, we kind of felt like we knew we were going to see them. And I think they might have felt like, well, they knew that they were going to see us, by the end of it. So it was exciting, man. And I think, you talk about not liking each other. I know those series got kind of chippy, but I think it was actually sort of out of at least in my opinion, it was kind of a mutual respect, really. Like we knew they were good and we felt like we could compete with them. And, we had known what that organization, what that franchise had done, not that it's the same group or anything like that, but there's still a history there of like, these guys know what they're doing. And we felt like we could compete with it. And I really do feel like there was a mutual respect, even if the teams didn't necessarily love each other. I think they kind of knew that, each other were going to be prepared and ready to go.
You mentioned respect a few times, and I noticed before games throughout the year, but even during that series, you and Sean Smedley, the RiverDogs manager, I mean, you guys would have some long conversations. I saw you and your father were down there with Smed before the final game of the playoffs. But is that, I know you're both former catchers, is he just a guy that you enjoy talking baseball and stuff with before games?
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed getting to know him a little bit personally, and obviously going at it a little bit professionally. I like what he does. I respect him. I mean, you come in and like I said, the team's always prepared. I like the way they go about their day. He's a good guy. So I mean, I always enjoyed catching up with him, and anytime we play, I would always talk to him. And I know I go way back with Ronnie Richardson too, so we played
Mm-hmm.
against each other in the minor leagues. So yeah, I would always enjoy talking to those guys, and I really enjoy watching Smeds do his thing because I think he's really good, and obviously enjoy our teams going at it.
So we're going to get into a little bit of detail and go through the three games in that series, which I still think was maybe the best minor league playoff series that I've ever been a part of in 10 years of minor league baseball for a lot of reasons. But the number one reason for me was the fans at both places throughout the entire series. Here in Charleston, I was shocked my first year here that, in minor league baseball, playoff games are often get as many people as you can in there, and you're playing in front of 800 to 1,000 people. There isn't a promotion scheduled. But it just felt like people who wanted to watch baseball, who kind of knew what was on the line and set the atmosphere for the entire series, both here on that Tuesday and then at your place Thursday and Friday. So what was it like coming out of the dugout each day and kind of taking in the atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, it was special. It's good to see because I've been in part of some of these things too, like what you're saying. It's at the end of the year, kids are back in school. It almost becomes kind of like a throw in at the end of the year, right? Like it's like,
Right.
oh yeah, so the team's made the playoffs, come on out. And I can say that there was none of that with Charleston or in Kannapolis. The fans were out, they were into it. The ballparks were packed, and we put on a good show for them, both sides. I mean, they they were into it though, man, and it's good. It's good for the players. That's a part of developing. I mean that you want to play in situations like that. You want to be in situations like that, and we certainly felt it. And I appreciate the fans on both sides. Honestly, I mean, what Charleston came out and how that atmosphere was, and then you go back to Kannapolis, and that's your home group, and you see people that have been at the games. A lot of those people come to almost every game. I mean, so it's pretty special.
Game one is always so important in a best of three. And Smeds often told me he feels like, winning the second half isn't so bad because you get that first game at home and it is so important, meaning you only have to win one more when you do go on the road. The RiverDogs threw Gary Gale Hill. You had Tanner McDougal, who had been big for you down the stretch, has all the talent and the measurables you could want, and a guy with a little bit of attitude as well, which is always great in a playoff situation. And that game was back and forth almost the whole way with the starting pitchers out there. And then I wasn't sure what the RiverDogs plan was going to be out of the bullpen. And then Drew Dowd starts warming up, and he and Gary had been two of the top pitchers in the league all year. And so once you guys got that one, I think it was Antonacci that had the double down the left field line that put you ahead for good. That felt like a huge win. So what do you think it meant like in your head and in the clubhouse to beat, two of the top pitchers in the Carolina League, especially in the second half in game one?
Well, I'm glad you're kind of recapping. I actually went back when I found out I was going to do this, and I found got my game cards, my
I have
lineup,
my notes too.
my pocket from all three games because I was like, I'm going to do this, and those games in a way were a blur. I mean, they really were. So yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, we figured we were going to get Gil Hill in game one, and weren't sure about Dowd. We thought that could probably happen. Maybe if it was close with a lead, I don't know if it was set in stone or not. But yeah, we put up good at bats. They were tough at bats. I had seen Gil Hill sharper at other points in the season. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, that guy's got all the talent in the world, and he's going to pitch for a very long time. But I felt like that night he was kind of gettable. If we put up good at bats, and Burroughs hits the big homer, that was a big moment. And we had Tanner McDougal, who went out, who was sent down from Winston-Salem, kind of needed a reset, was with us for a few weeks, big time stuff. And if he's right, he's as good as anybody too. So we felt good about him in game one. Yeah, we were able to come down there, in in a tough atmosphere and get that game. And yeah, I mean, that certainly went a long way in what would come in the next couple days.
So then you have the off day. Everybody's kind of thinking about this. You guys head home. We get on a bus and head to Kannapolis. And it's sort of an odd thing because we have the hotel room for that night, but you don't know if you need it. If you lose, you're coming back home. If you don't, you're going to stay another night. It's always very awkward in those minor league baseball elimination scenarios. But the RiverDogs throw out Santiago Suarez, and you guys had hit him better than any team had hit Santiago Suarez in his 2 years in the Carolina League. I know he was great on opening night against you, but you guys had his number, and I know he was really excited about getting the baseball on that one. He kind of took it personally, like, hey, I'm going to show that, I can show up in a big moment. So what did you expect from him, knowing, again, that you guys had a lot of success against him earlier?
Yeah, I mean, we had some success against him earlier, but we knew he was very capable. And, we didn't know. It turns out, I don't know what his final line was, but he went longer than I thought he might have. I don't know what his line was, but I didn't know if Sean and his staff, I didn't know if that would kind of be a bullpen situation or what that might look like. Because we figured Harrison was in the hole for game 3. So he pitched really good. I mean, we couldn't really get much going. I think we got down early and we kind of fought a little bit, but we never really got back. I don't think we ever tied the game. So, they came out and we just, we didn't have our best out of the gate, and, they kind of just took that game early and kind of ran with it. But, it was kind of, you don't want to say to be expected, but I would have been shocked if this didn't go 3 games. So it was like, all right, what's the best way at this point to, stay in it and give ourselves a chance in this game, but not, we got to win one more. So, how do we want to get through this game where we're setting ourselves up with the best possible chance, tomorrow?
Now let's talk about, I think this is my favorite game in my career in which the team I worked for lost, was game 3. It was just fantastic from the beginning. It was intense. The crowd showed up again, similar to it had on Thursday night. There was literally people on their feet the entire game. Every pitch, it felt like momentum was swinging back and forth, and all that without anybody scoring for about 2.5, 3 hours. That was about the best pitched game that I've seen at this level of baseball as well. You had Jake Peppers, the RiverDogs threw Trevor Harrison, who you just mentioned. And I thought both of those guys were really, really special at the outset of that game.
Yeah, I mean, again, Harrison scared me a little bit. We had seen him and again, Gil Hill had an absolutely unbelievable season, but I felt like by the end of it, I wasn't so sure Harrison might not have been the best you guys had. That guy, he looks the part. Like he's got big time stuff. So, we were banking on Jake Peppers matching him, and man, he did. That was our guy. It was kind of fitting, really, that Pep was in that situation because he was the one holdover we had all year, right, on the starting pitching side. I mean, everybody else moved or, unfortunately maybe got dinged up. But, Pep had been our guy from day one. And, for him to have that performance and to get the ball in that game at home, that was the guy we wanted. I said it after the game. I mean, if we were going to play that game, we wanted Jake Peppers, and man, he delivered. And I haven't mentioned him yet, but I mean, the whole series, our bullpen, game 2 got a little kind of clunky at times. Mm-hmm. We sort of got through it, but man, I mean, the whole series, and not to take away what those guys did too, because they got us through game 2 in a situation where we had what we needed to have in order, to compete in game 3 the way that we did. I mean, Mark McLaughlin, Hartzog, Combs. I mean, these guys out of the bullpen, those 3 in particular, but there were others, they were just lights out. And, they matched what we knew was a really good staff on Charleston's side. So that was critically important for us. But, yeah, Pep certainly set the tone. And, that's probably as exciting of a 2-1, 11 innings, no score through 10 game you're ever going to see.
So then you get to extras. I've always thought in the playoffs it's kind of awkward when you start with that man on second. In the regular season, you're like, okay, we're going to figure this out. In the playoffs, it's a whole new animal because you always feel like in the top of the inning, if the road team scores one, you're okay. If they don't score, we're in a great spot to win. And if they score more than one, now we're kind of chasing a run here. So you hold us off the scoreboard in the top of the 10th. In the bottom of the 10th, starting with a man on second, there was a single, and you made the decision to hold the runner at third. Eventually, a couple of strikeouts came back, and then a ground out to second, and that's how the inning ended. How tough of a decision in the moment was it for you to either send the runner or hold it? Because you know in your head, if he's safe, if one thing goes wrong, we're winning right now. So how much restraint did you have to show?
That was a tough one for me. And I haven't gone back and looked at it. I was kicking myself a little bit because Diaz was playing left field, and he gets to the ball quick. He closes on it quick. Maybe not the strongest of arms, but that was kind of a bleeder. He's coming in on it. And, Jackson Appel was on second base. He got a good jump, but I was in between. And, I tend to be aggressive. So in a game like that, if I had a chance to do it over again, I might have sent him.
Okay.
But Ryan Burroughs was hot, and he was on deck. I know he's hitting ninth, but he had put up good at bats. You still feel like you're in a decent spot. If he gets thrown out there, all the momentum changes. 2 outs, that's a automatic send. Nobody out, it's almost certainly a hold. 1 out's the coin flip, man. 1 out's always the tough one. You can't really rely on contact anymore. And yeah, that's one that I probably will go back and look at some point, just out of curiosity, because I haven't really completely stopped thinking about it. I think about it every once in a while, But I held him, and Ryan strikes out, I believe Ryan strikes out, and Nachi makes an out somehow, some way, and they got out of the inning. But yeah, I definitely went back. I mean, even after the game, I was asking my dad, I was like, yeah, man, I don't know. I might have been able to push it there, but nothing. It's a tough one. That's third base coaches, obviously in the minor leagues, the managers are coaching third. So for the most part, so it's that's one you think about.
And then the 11th, the RiverDogs get a run with 2 outs. Emilian Petrie was great for the RiverDogs down the stretch. Puts one into center field. You hold the RiverDogs to 1 run, though. I would imagine at that point you go back to the dugout and you're still feeling okay about where you are. You would have loved to get out of that with 2 outs without a run, but at that point I'm thinking you probably were starting to feel pretty confident that you guys could at least match that.
Yeah, I mean, Petrie got the hit, right? So
yeah.
There was I had gone back and forth a little bit, and again, you don't have all the time in the world. You try to be prepared for all the situations. I thought about walking Petrie and facing Hudsack?
Hisack, yeah.
Hisack, yeah. It was Mark, so it's right on right. But Mark, platoon with right left is okay. And I didn't, to your point, the 1 run in extra innings doesn't kill you, right? If you put Petrie on and all of a sudden Hisack hits a double, now it's 2-0. And frankly, at that point in that game, the game's probably over. I was worried about the first team scoring. I figured the first team that scored in that game would probably win it. So you're right, like, all right, be careful with whatever you want to say. But I was thinking about walking him, and I didn't, just because I didn't want to put that extra runner on base and take a risk of, Hisack's a good hitter. So I stayed away from it, and he gets the hit, but we end up getting out of the inning. It's 1 run, and, we'll take our chances from there.
So then a very interesting bottom half of the inning. A ground ball gets the tying run to third with 1 out. You pinch ran Dennison in that spot, who was a guy that had a lot of speed and could get off pretty quick, a longer guy as well, which turned out to be very important because of the next play. It's a comebacker to the mound. Andy Rodriguez, who had pitched really well out of the RiverDogs bullpen, fields it. And I remember being in the booth. I looked, and he had the ball. Runner was about halfway home, and I'm like, if they get this guy at the plate, now the odds shift heavily in our favor. And he hurried the throw a little bit, partly because of that speed at third. It goes to the backstop. So not only is the game tied, now the winning run's in scoring position. What was going through your head as that ball is coming back to the mound? He gloves it, and then the throw sails a little bit high.
Well, it really started before the at bat because I had to make a decision quickly. Was I going to send Was I going to send the runner? Did I want to send the runner on contact?
Mm-hmm.
Because we had McCants on deck, who is a dangerous hitter, who's a good hitter. You know, was I going to send the guy with one out on contact? Yes or no? And I decided I was going to send him. So at that point, I ran Dennison because he's just faster. He flies. So he's off the bench. This is the one spot he may be able to impact the game. So, let's get him in and we'll just take our best chance with it. And yeah, I mean, Mac hits the ball, back to the pitcher. He makes a good play. I mean, that ball was hit fairly hard.
Right.
And I'm thinking, the infield's in. I'm thinking that ball's, has a chance to go up the middle. He snares it. I'm like, oh, man. And then as you could kind of see it speed up on him a little bit. And, Dennison was moving. And, yeah, I think he just kind of sort of pulled it or spiked it. And Dennison's safe. And Mac heads up, was able to get to second base, which, turned out to be a huge thing.
And then McCants hits the line drive to left field. At first, I thought, oh, no. Then I was like, okay, Diaz has that. And then he kind of got turned around. He jumps awkwardly, and it's just out of the reach of his glove. Makarevic scores from second, and you guys win, and it leads to a pretty fulfilling celebration, I would imagine, just for the intensity of that series and the way the game went. What did you think when the ball left the bat initially, and then what was the immediate reaction? I think after the game I heard you in an interview say you couldn't really remember what you were thinking at the moment. It kind of got chaotic there.
Yeah, well, it did, but I'd been in that ballpark for a lot of games and coached third at a lot of games there and just been there for a lot of games. So I had seen some players in the past, Brooks Baldwin, who ended up playing in the big leagues this year for us. Left-handed hitter, I had seen him burn some left fielders with line drives that carry a little bit to left. And I knew TJ hit that ball well. And when I saw Diaz's first step, I said, oh boy, uh-oh. And I wasn't sure if I still thought he had a chance to recover. But like you said, he didn't get a great read. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of had an awkward recovery. I think if he has a good recovery, he probably catches the ball.
Yep.
But he kind of got stuck. And when he did, I mean, I pretty much knew that ball was over his head. So, just waiting, he kind of throws his glove up and you're just watching to make sure, I don't think he can get there, but, can he? And, it turned out that it was about a foot or two out of his reach, and that was it.
The celebration afterwards, I thought it was kind of really cool. It was the first trip for the Cannonballers to the playoffs, so obviously the first playoff win. Was there there was an emotional celebration. It sort of felt like on the field the fans were going crazy. Now, you fully know that there's another series coming up in a couple of days against a good Fredericksburg team, but at the same time, it kind of felt like that was a huge series win for the team and for the city as a whole.
It was. That was a big moment for the team, for the organization, for us. Kannapolis, having been there for, I think this was our fourth year there, and not really, having much team success. Leading up to this year, we had a pretty decent year in 23. We were able to finish with a positive record. And, there's so many factors in the minor leagues, right? Like, you're trying to develop players. It's not the end all be all, but you see these fans and the affiliate and how much they care about it. You want to put a good product out there for them. You want to have a competitive team. And, we certainly, try to do both. We want to develop, we want to win too. And, for us to win a playoff series, to make the playoffs, but then to win a playoff series, especially against Charleston, who, like I said, we just had so much respect for. With Smedley, you knew they were going to be prepared. That it was going to be a tough series. And, frankly, by the time we played the series, I would say we were definitely underdogs in that series, in my opinion. So, yeah, it was just a fulfilling moment for us. And, you get that new group that comes in, and it's kind of unfortunate sometimes that all those guys who were such a big part of the first half, don't really get a chance to experience that. But at the same time, you got these new guys who were just drafted, that this is their first real, memory and experience in professional baseball, and they get to do something like that. So it was an emotional night for all of us. I mean, the game itself, you're just exhausted after the game, but you end up on the right side of it, and you celebrate all the work that goes into it, really.
And then you fall one game short, another game 3 in the championship series. But I always thought it was really awkward to play a doubleheader to decide the league championship. You guys lost game 1, went to Fredericksburg, took game 1 there of the doubleheader after a rainout, and then fall in game 2. Was that sort of an odd experience to kind of cap the season? Is playing a couple of 7-inning games?
Well, the whole stretch after the Charleston series was kind of odd, right? So we win the game, and then we're taking the next day off. Like we need a minute. Let's reset, refocus. Let's get ready for Fredericksburg. Let's just recover a little bit, rest, and just get ready. Because that was such an emotionally draining series. It really was. I mean, we have to travel. That's the other thing when you get game 1 versus games 2 and 3.
Right.
We have to travel twice. So we had to come to Charleston, get back, and then play those 2 games. Now all of a sudden we get through it, and we got game 1, coming at home. So, we took the next day and just, kind of got away from it. Like, hey, let's regroup, let's get ready to go. And, it wasn't for a lack of effort or a lack of, wanting it or anything like that. We just couldn't quite recapture what we had the series before. Guys were into it. They were doing everything they could. It just didn't feel like that series had the same juice to it. Like we couldn't quite get there again. And we played well. I mean, we kind of came out in game 1 and got down early, kind of chipped away, almost got back. Then they added a couple runs, and their bullpen, and they're certainly a very, very talented team. So we knew that was going to be tough too. I mean, they, from wire to wire, they might have been maybe the best record or almost the best record besides Carolina, I guess.
Right.
In the league. So they were good from start to finish, and I think they were definitely playing their best baseball. They were their best version of that team at the end, and we knew they were tough. And yeah, we come out in game 1, we couldn't quite get home, and then we have the scheduled off day, and then we get the rain out. So we end up getting 2 days. And, after the rain out, then it's like, okay, we're going to play the 2 7s. And, I think some people thought I was crazy. I talked about it a little bit, with our staff and with some of the front office, and a few people agreed. A lot of people kind of nodded and said, okay, whatever. But I actually thought, given the situation, having to win 2 games with what we had and what we were looking at, I thought the doubleheader favored us.
Okay.
And the reason being is we had the pitching set up. We knew what we had, and every inning from here on out was going to be a high leverage inning. You're playing for your season, so there's no, hey, let's just get through this, let's get through that, and set things up. No, you got to win the game. So every inning was going to be high leverage, and it took 4 innings off the table. So everybody was going to be rested. Now you're kind of looking at winning a day, and we had everybody. We could kind of fire away with the best we had, and it took 4 innings out of the equation. Now, that being said, we ran into Socorro, so
right.
It took innings away from them too. But that was a good series. I mean, Tanner McDougal in the game 2 was, 5 no-hit innings. He was absolutely lights out. Combs again comes in and does his thing, and we forced that game 3. And another reason I thought it was kind of a benefit, aside from Socorro, was if you win game 2, if you lose game 2, it's over. If you win game 2, all of a sudden Fredericksburg's got 45 minutes to regroup for a game 3 that means everything. And to their credit, they did a great job, with that. And Socorro, went out and did his thing. But I felt like had I been in their situation, I wouldn't want that. Like, hey, you lose game 2, and now it's right away. Like, you don't have the night to game plan. You don't have the night to, figure out exactly how you want to manipulate things as best you can. you got to get ready and go. I mean, so I actually felt like, in a way, given that we had to win 2 games, that it may have benefited us. Now it didn't pan out that way, and that's to their credit.
It was a great season. It was fun to watch it firsthand, even though it ended ours a little bit earlier than we would have hoped for here in Charleston. We recapped that now. I wanted to talk to you about how you got into baseball. I think that's probably relatively apparent. But do you remember when baseball to you was kind of like, okay, this is something that I want to spend my life around as well? Obviously, knowing that you probably were around baseball more than anybody else when you were younger.
Yeah, I get that question all the time, and it goes back to when I was a kid. I mean, first of all, with my dad being in it, you know, I just wanted to be around him. So if you grow up in baseball, I'm sure people can tell you, if you want to be around your dad, well, you're probably going to be at the ballpark, or you're going to be, traveling around, or it's kind of whatever it takes. And, it initially just wanted to be around him. And then the more I mean, the more I just fell in love with it. And I knew, I wanted to play like everybody else. And I was fortunate to get a chance to do that professionally. And, um, I had been around it so much that I really couldn't imagine doing anything else. It was just like, well, this is what you're going to do, and it doesn't always work out, but that's always how I felt about it. Once I was around it, okay, this is what, I want to do. This is what I want to, do for a living. And fortunately, I'm getting a chance to do it.
Do you ever? I know he was at some of the games the last couple of years. You got to take some time to go to the Hall of Fame ceremony. What did that mean to you, having that around you this year, and then getting a chance to experience that?
Absolutely, an overwhelming experience. The Hall of Fame. It was incredible. I mean, it was so classy and well done, and all the people involved with the Hall of Fame just made it such an incredible weekend. And for somebody that's in it, and just to look around. I mean, you're at the Otissaga Hotel, and I mean, there's just like Hall of Famers just walking everywhere. I mean, it's disorienting, really. I mean, it truly is. And we had all of our friends and family. So many people made the trip up, and yeah, it was just an incredible experience. And he was so well received. I laugh all the time because he was paranoid and working so hard at his speech. I think from the moment that he was announced that he was going to get in, it was all about the speech for months. I mean, he'd call me, we'd talk, and he goes, "Hey man, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that." So just for the speech to be well received was like this huge burden lifted off of us. But it was an incredible weekend, and one we'll never forget. And you only get one chance at it. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime. So we absolutely made the most of it, and all of our friends and family being there was just incredible.
Your last name is obviously synonymous with Detroit and the Tigers. You played there after you were drafted, and now you end up with the White Sox, who I guess you could call them a rival of the Tigers. So is that sort of a unique twist there to the story? You're in an organization that's located in the Midwest that plays against the Tigers all the time?
Not really. I mean,
Yeah.
I know they're in the division and everything, but I mean, even as a player, like, yeah, I spent most of my time with Detroit, but I did have a brief stint with Seattle, and then I went to spring trainings with Cincinnati and Washington. So after you kind of do that, I started my coaching career with Baltimore. So I mean, once you do that, you kind of lose all those sort of, I don't know, like rivalry, animosity type things. Like, you're just doing your job, and fortunate that the White Sox gave me an opportunity. I mean, Jerry Reinsdorf has been so good to me, and Chris Getz brought me in, and now it's Paul Yanish and the whole group over there. So no, I'm thrilled and happy to be a White Sox.
Was there any point in your playing career when you decided that after you were done, whenever that was, you definitely wanted to get into coaching or especially managing?
Yeah, I think I knew fairly early on. I mean, I got drafted and was playing for a couple years, and then ended up getting hurt. I didn't perform necessarily all that well, and got hurt. And then I kind of started bouncing around and went to Seattle, and actually had a decent year in the minor leagues with Seattle. But once I had a second shoulder surgery and I wasn't catching anymore, I was playing first, and at that point, I'm like, all right, I mean, you're still holding out hope that you might, kind of sneak your way up there and get a cup of coffee or whatever. But I knew that, the majority of my career at that point, hopefully, would be on the other side. And I mean, I knew, one of my goals, like I wanted to manage, you know, just as bad as I wanted to play. Really, I was hoping to play first and do it for a long time, like everybody else. But managing was still always something that I had wanted to do. So it just happened a little sooner than I would have liked it to.
You didn't play baseball all that long ago. Your career, it's not like you played 20, 25 years ago, but how different is the game right now when you bring up an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old kid and they're all throwing 98 or 99? It's amazing how quickly from like 2010 to 13 it's changed to 2024, 25.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, in ways, but I think it's still similar. I think the resources that players have now has changed, and you see, I think so much with the pitching has changed, where like guys are just, I don't want to say more talented than they were, but I guess more advanced, or the stuff seems to be different. Um, at least the depth of it. Like, I mean, when I played, if you got into like a middle reliever, or, you're like, okay, or you'd still see a starter a third time. Like, it was still kind of a hybrid of old school, new school, like even when I was done playing. And now, I mean, you see like, these teams just, guy after guy after guy, 94, 96, 94, 96, like that's unique. I mean, we would see that often, but it would be a few guys. And then you'd
Right.
have kind of, your organizational guys who, are very valuable, but the depth of talent now at a young age, I think has definitely increased.
Let's you have any other sports that you are particularly interested in as a fan when you get away from baseball? Are you a football guy, hockey, anything, basketball?
I play golf quite a bit, so when I get home, I try to play as much as I can, and longer I'm working in baseball, the worse my golf game gets. But I do enjoy it. I love it, man. And I got a bunch of guys up here that we play quite a bit, and try to at least. As far as like watching, I just follow Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm kind of a Pittsburgh fan, so the Steelers are obviously having a good year. My wife and I go to a few games. She's got some season tickets, so um, we do that, and we follow them a little bit. But any team in Pittsburgh that's playing, that's doing well, you pull for, and that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, we definitely get to a couple Steeler games, and we enjoy them.
I think you probably don't have a choice when you live in Pittsburgh, but to say that at least publicly.
Yeah, I mean it's just part of the fabric of the city, man. It's cool.
Right?
Pittsburgh is an incredible sports town. I know I'm biased, and I mean that even the Pirates. I mean, they're people here are crying out for a winner, and they support their teams, man. I mean, they really really do. The Penguins have had a great run over the last 10, 15 years, whatever it's been. Yeah, it's a great sports town, man, and they get behind them.
All right, we'll let you go with a couple of rapid fire questions here that I wanted to ask you. Favorite road city? So this is not related to the ballpark, but favorite place to go in the Carolina League?
Um, Charleston.
That's a great answer for purposes of this show.
That's the truth. Charleston's a great town, man.
Favorite road ballpark to play in?
Fayetteville.
Let's see. Funniest trash talk from a fan, maybe that you've heard at some point in your career that's acceptable for this platform, maybe, or what fans give it to you the best on the road?
Anybody in Myrtle Beach, man. Charleston's got some characters too, but I usually just end up laughing with them, and they're cool. But Myrtle Beach, man, can be tough.
Is it Kannapolis or Fayetteville where there's a guy who sits right by the home? I mean, the ballparks look very similar. Fayetteville and Kannapolis, they're kind of set up exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fan like 3 rows above the tunnel to the clubhouses that is very loud. Is that Fayetteville or is that at your place?
I don't think it's our place. It's
okay.
like Fayetteville, but I don't know.
walk-up song in your career, or what you would use now? If you had a lineup card walk-up song, what would you go with?
Oh man, I had some good ones, some funny ones. I had a Backstreet Boys song at one point. Chinese Lump. Man, I have no idea what I'd use now, man. As a manager, you're so far out of the walk-up game. Then, I look at the players and what they have, and always kind of take notes of what they have. But I don't know what I would tell you at this point.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. Seriously enjoyed watching your team and getting to know you just a little bit over the last couple of years, but it was a great run, and we really appreciate your time. Congrats on the wedding and a great season, and I look forward to hopefully running into you again in the future.
Absolutely, Jason. I appreciate you having me on, man. This was fun, and enjoy the rest of your off season as well, and best of luck with you guys going forward.
Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Three Pete After Me. It was a good chat with the guy who knocked off the RiverDogs in the playoffs for the first time since before COVID. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Make sure to leave us a comment on Facebook, X, or on Instagram. Let us know if there's anybody else you want to hear from on this season of Three Pete After Me, and we'll talk to you again soon.